Hello, my amazing learners, and welcome back to the Wisdom English podcast. My name is Sarah, and today I want to share my personal journey of learning English with you. Learning English has been one of the most important and transformative experiences of my life because it opens up so many opportunities in education, career, and most importantly, in connecting with people from all around the world. When I first decided to learn English, I knew it would be a challenge, but I also knew the benefits would be worth it. English truly is the language of international business, science, technology, and entertainment. For me, learning English was not just about understanding a new language, but about embracing a new way of thinking and connecting with the global community. And make sure you stay with me until the very end, because I'll be sharing the single most important secret that truly makes all of these other strategies work. Beginning the journey. When I first started learning English, it felt like trying to climb a huge, intimidating mountain. The peak of fluency seemed so far away. The grammar rules were confusing, and the vocabulary seemed endless. My initial attempts were often met with frustration and self-doubt. However, I knew that to succeed, I had to immerse myself in the language as much as possible. My first step was to bring English into my daily life in simple, practical ways. I began with a technique that might sound silly but was incredibly effective. I labeled items in my house with their English names. I put a sticky note that said refrigerator on my fridge, mirror on my mirror, and bookshelf on my bookshelf. This constant visual reminder helped my brain associate English words with everyday objects, making vocabulary learning more practical and less abstract. Listening to English songs became another key part of my immersion strategy. At first, I chose songs with clear lyrics and repetitive phrases, which made it easier to catch and understand the words. I would listen to these songs multiple times, trying to sing along. This practice not only improved my vocabulary but also helped with my pronunciation and my understanding of the natural rhythm of the language. Over time, I began to understand more complex lyrics and could appreciate the nuances and storytelling in the songs. To build a solid foundation, I also enrolled in an English language course. The structured environment provided by the course helped me grasp the basics. My instructor focused on essential grammar rules and fundamental vocabulary, which were initially challenging but absolutely crucial for my progress. We practiced all 4 skills: speaking, listening, reading, and writing, ensuring a well-rounded approach. The classroom setting also gave me the opportunity to interact with other learners, share our struggles and successes, and motivate each other. One of the early challenges I faced was understanding and using English grammar. English grammar rules can be quite different from those in my native language, and this often led to confusion. To tackle this, I used grammar workbooks and online resources that provided clear explanations and plenty of practice exercises. I dedicated a specific time each day to study grammar, focusing on just one rule at a time. Breaking down the learning process into these manageable parts made it feel much less overwhelming. Reading also became a cornerstone of my learning journey. I started with children's books because they used simple language and were often illustrated, which helped in understanding the context. As my confidence grew, I moved on to young adult novels and then to more complex literature. Reading not only expanded my vocabulary but also exposed me to different writing styles and sentence structures. I kept a notebook where I wrote down new words and their meanings, and I made it a habit to regularly review this vocabulary list. Watching English movies and television shows with subtitles was another effective strategy. Initially, I watched with subtitles in my native language to understand the context. Gradually, I switched to English subtitles, which was a huge step. This practice helped me match the spoken words with their written forms, which improved my listening and reading skills simultaneously. It also familiarized me with everyday conversational English. I made it a habit to note down any new phrases or idiomatic expressions I encountered and tried to use them in my own sentences. Practicing speaking was perhaps the most daunting, yet most rewarding part of my journey. I sought out opportunities to converse in English, even if it meant stepping far out of my comfort zone. I joined language exchange programs where I could practice speaking with native English speakers. These conversations were incredibly beneficial as they provided real-life practice and immediate feedback. At first, I was nervous and made many mistakes, but over time my confidence grew and my speaking skills improved. One of the most helpful tools I used was language learning apps. These apps provided interactive exercises, vocabulary games, and daily practice reminders. They made learning feel fun and engaging, which helped maintain my interest and motivation. Apps that used spaced repetition systems were particularly useful for memorizing vocabulary, as they ensured I reviewed words at optimal intervals for long-term retention. In addition to this structured learning, I also tried to think in English as much as possible. This was challenging initially, as my mind would naturally revert to my native language. However, with conscious practice, I found myself gradually starting to form thoughts directly in English, which greatly improved my fluency and speed in forming sentences. Writing was another area I focused on. I kept a daily journal where I wrote about my day, my thoughts, and any new words I had learned. This practice helped me apply new vocabulary and grammar rules in a practical context. Over time, I noticed my writing becoming more coherent and natural. To make learning enjoyable, I incorporated my hobbies into my English practice. For instance, I enjoyed cooking, so I started reading recipes and watching cooking shows in English. This not only improved my language skills but also made the learning process enjoyable and relevant to my interests. Throughout this beginning phase, I realized the importance of patience and persistence. There were times when progress seemed slow and it was easy to get discouraged. However, by setting small, achievable goals and celebrating each milestone, I stayed motivated. Each new word learned, each successful conversation, and each book read was a step forward. By immersing myself in the language, using a variety of learning methods, and staying consistent, I gradually overcame the initial challenges and set myself on the path to becoming proficient in English. Developing effective strategies. As I progressed in my English learning journey, I began to move from just trying everything to developing specific strategies that significantly accelerated my improvement. These methods not only made learning more effective, but also more enjoyable, helping me stay motivated for the long haul. One of the most effective methods was, as I mentioned, reading English books, but I became more strategic about it. I started choosing books that specifically matched my level. I began with engaging titles like The Very Hungry Caterpillar and Where the Wild Things Are. These books were not only fun, but also provided a solid foundation in basic vocabulary and sentence structure. As I gained more confidence, I gradually moved to young adult novels such as the Harry Potter series. These books were more complex but still accessible, with plots that kept me interested. Reading these novels helped me expand my vocabulary and exposed me to more sophisticated sentence structures and storytelling techniques. I made it a point to underline new words and phrases, and later I would look up their meanings. I also started writing summaries of the chapters to practice my writing skills and ensure I understood the plot. Watching English movies with subtitles was another crucial strategy that I refined. I created a 3-step process. First, I would watch a scene with subtitles in my native language to grasp the story. Second, I would watch the same scene again, but this time with English subtitles. This helped me match the spoken words with their written forms. Finally, I would watch it a third time with no subtitles at all, trying to understand based on my listening skills alone. Films like Toy Story and Finding Nemo were great starters because they were entertaining and used clear, simple language. As my skills improved, I moved on to more complex films and television shows like Friends and The Office, which helped me understand conversational English and idiomatic expressions. Listening to English songs also played a significant role in my learning process. I started with songs that had clear lyrics and repetitive choruses, such as those by the Beatles and Taylor Swift. I would listen to the songs multiple times while reading the lyrics, trying to sing along. This not only improved my pronunciation, but also helped me remember new words and phrases. I found that music made learning feel less like a chore and more like an enjoyable activity. Engaging in conversations was crucial for improving my speaking skills. I made it a habit to practice speaking with friends who were fluent in English. At first, I was hesitant and afraid of making mistakes, but I soon realized that speaking regularly was the best way to build confidence. We would have casual conversations about daily life, hobbies, and current events. These interactions helped me get comfortable with the rhythm and flow of the language. I also joined English conversation clubs and language exchange programs. These provided a supportive environment where I could practice speaking with both native speakers and other learners. Using language learning apps was another effective strategy that I continued to use. Apps like Duolingo, Memories, and Anki offered interactive exercises that made learning engaging. The spaced repetition systems used by these apps helped me remember vocabulary more effectively. I often used them during short breaks or while commuting, making good use of my time. Writing was another area I focused on to enhance my language skills. I kept a daily journal where I wrote about my experiences, thoughts, and any new words or phrases I had learned. This practice helped me apply what I had learned in a practical context and improved my writing fluency. Over time, my journal entries became more detailed and sophisticated, reflecting my growing confidence. To further improve my grammar and vocabulary, I used online resources and grammar workbooks. Websites like Grammarly and Purdue OWL offered clear explanations and exercises on various grammar topics. I dedicated specific times each week to focus on grammar, tackling one rule at a time. This systematic approach helped me understand the structure of the language better and reduced the number of mistakes I made. Listening to English podcasts was another strategy that proved highly beneficial. Podcasts covered a wide range of topics, from news and storytelling to science and culture. Shows like The Daily by the New York Times and TED Talks Daily were informative and helped me get used to different accents and speaking speeds. Engaging with English-speaking communities online also played a crucial role. I joined forums and social media groups focused on topics I was interested in, such as technology, literature, and travel. Participating in discussions and reading posts by native speakers exposed me to colloquial language and current slang. Another effective strategy was setting specific achievable goals. I broke down my learning process into smaller, manageable tasks, such as learning a certain number of new words each week or completing a chapter of a book. These short-term goals kept me motivated and provided a sense of accomplishment. Incorporating English into my hobbies and interests made learning more relevant and enjoyable. For instance, as a cooking enthusiast, I started following English language cooking blogs and watching cooking shows on YouTube. This not only improved my language skills, but also enriched my culinary knowledge. Throughout this journey, I realized the importance of a positive mindset and perseverance. There were times when progress seemed slow, but I reminded myself that every small step forward was a step toward fluency. Celebrating milestones, no matter how minor, kept me motivated. Overcoming obstacles. Of course, there were times when I felt stuck and frustrated. Learning a new language is rarely a smooth path, and English, with its numerous exceptions and irregularities, presented many challenges. Some grammar concepts, such as the use of tenses or prepositions, were particularly tough to grasp. I often made mistakes, which initially felt discouraging. However, I soon realized that mistakes were not failures but invaluable learning opportunities. One of the biggest hurdles was mastering English grammar. Unlike the straightforward grammar of my native language, English seemed to have countless rules and exceptions. To tackle this, I dedicated extra time to studying grammar through various resources. Practicing exercises regularly helped reinforce these concepts, but the key was repetition and persistence. Despite my efforts, I would often find myself making the same mistakes. This was frustrating, but I learned to approach these errors with curiosity instead of frustration. Each mistake highlighted an area that needed more attention. I kept a detailed journal where I wrote a few sentences in English every day. This practice allowed me to track my progress and see patterns in my errors. Joining online forums and language exchange programs was another strategy that significantly helped me overcome obstacles. Platforms like Reddit's language learning forums and dedicated websites like Italki connected me with native speakers and fellow learners. Speaking with native speakers exposed me to natural language use and idiomatic expressions that textbooks often overlook. Participating in language exchange programs was both challenging and rewarding. Initially, I felt nervous and self-conscious about speaking English, fearing judgment for my mistakes. However, I quickly realized that these fears were unfounded. Most native speakers were patient and supportive, appreciating my efforts. They offered constructive feedback and corrections, which helped me refine my speaking skills. One particularly effective method for overcoming obstacles was using spaced repetition systems, SRS, for vocabulary building. I used apps like Anki to create digital flashcards with new words and phrases. The SRS algorithm scheduled reviews of these cards at optimal intervals, ensuring that I revisited information just before I was likely to forget it. To further improve my listening skills, I started listening to English language podcasts and audiobooks. This immersion helped me get used to different accents and speeds of speech. I would listen to episodes multiple times, each time picking up new details. Watching English language television shows and movies without subtitles was another challenging but effective practice. This forced me to rely on my listening skills and contextual understanding. I chose shows with clear dialogue and everyday scenarios, such as Friends and Modern Family. Writing was another area where I faced significant challenges. To improve, I started writing more frequently, not just in my journal, but also by participating in online writing communities. This practice helped me develop a clearer, more coherent writing style. I also used online tools like Grammarly to check my grammar and style, learning from the corrections it suggested. There were moments when I felt overwhelmed by the sheer volume of new information. To manage this, I broke down my learning into smaller, manageable tasks. Instead of trying to learn a large number of new words at once, I focused on mastering a few each day. This approach made the learning process more sustainable. Maintaining a positive mindset was crucial. During days when progress seemed slow, I reminded myself of how far I had come. Celebrating small victories helped maintain my motivation. I also surrounded myself with supportive friends and language partners who encouraged me. Making progress. Slowly but surely, I started to notice my progress. The journey had been filled with challenges, but each small victory reinforced my determination. One of the most memorable milestones was the first time I understood an entire conversation in English without needing to translate it in my head. It happened during a casual coffee chat with an English-speaking friend. I suddenly realized that I was fully engaged in the conversation without mentally switching back to my native language. This breakthrough gave me a tremendous boost in confidence. As I continued to immerse myself in the language, writing emails and essays became less daunting. Initially, writing in English was a slow process. But over time, as I practiced daily, my sentences started to flow more naturally. A particularly rewarding experience was when I wrote my first essay for an English class and received positive feedback from my instructor. It showed me that not only was I able to communicate my ideas effectively, but I could also engage critically with the language. Thinking in English was another significant milestone. At first, it was challenging, but with consistent practice, I began to notice that I was starting to think in English without effort. Simple thoughts and internal dialogues began occurring in English. This shift made a huge difference in my fluency, as it meant I could form sentences more quickly. One area where I saw substantial progress was in my listening skills. Early on, understanding native speakers was one of the most difficult aspects. They spoke quickly and used slang. But as I consistently watched English movies and listened to podcasts, my skills improved. The first time I watched an entire movie without subtitles and understood almost everything was a significant achievement. I also noticed improvement in my ability to read and comprehend complex texts. I started with simple books and gradually moved to more challenging literature. The moment I finished reading my first English novel without needing constant reference to a dictionary was incredibly satisfying. It opened up a new world of literature and information. Speaking in English became increasingly comfortable. Joining conversation clubs allowed me to practice regularly. Initially, I was nervous, but with time, my fluency improved. One notable moment was during a language exchange event where I spoke with native English speakers for over an hour without feeling overwhelmed. Another significant moment of progress was when I began to use idiomatic expressions and colloquialisms correctly. By watching television shows and listening to native speakers, I gradually started to incorporate these expressions into my speech. The first time I used an idiom correctly in a conversation and received an appreciative nod from a native speaker was a moment of pride. Engaging with English-speaking communities online also contributed to my progress. Participating in forums and social media groups helped me practice reading and writing in real time. Being part of a community of learners created a supportive environment where I could practice and improve continuously. One of the most significant measures of my progress was my improved ability to understand and engage with English language media. Watching news broadcasts and documentaries without subtitles became a regular practice. Understanding complex topics was a clear indicator that my skills had reached an advanced level. Incorporating English into my hobbies further solidified my progress. As a cooking enthusiast, following English language recipes became second nature. Engaging with content related to my interests kept learning enjoyable and relevant. Reflecting on my journey, I realized that making progress was not just about reaching specific milestones, but about the continuous effort and dedication I put into it. Each step, no matter how small, contributed to my overall improvement. Key tips and strategies. Through my experience, I found several tips and strategies to be particularly helpful in my journey. Let me summarize the most important ones for you. First, consistency is key. I cannot stress this enough. Practicing a little every day is far more effective than cramming once a week. I made sure to dedicate at least 15 to 30 minutes every single day to English. This consistent daily practice helped reinforce what I had learned and made it easier to retain new information. Second, engage with different media. Books, movies, music, and podcasts all offer unique learning opportunities. By using a variety of media, you expose yourself to different aspects of the language and keep your learning interesting. I would read a chapter of a book one day, watch a television show the next, and listen to a podcast on my commute. Third, speak as much as possible. Speaking is essential for solidifying your learning. I sought every opportunity to converse in English, whether it was with friends, language exchange partners, or even just talking to myself. The more you practice speaking, the more confident you will become. Fourth, use technology. Technology offers a plethora of tools that can aid your language learning. I made extensive use of language learning apps like Duolingo and Anki. I also used online grammar tools like Grammarly to improve my writing. Fifth, join a community. Finding a community of learners and speakers was crucial for staying motivated. Learning a language can sometimes feel isolating, but being part of a study group, a language exchange, or an online community provides support, encouragement, and opportunities for practice. In addition to these core strategies, I found a few other tips helpful. Immerse yourself in the language by changing your phone settings to English. Set small, achievable goals, like learning 5 new words a day. Be patient and persistent with yourself. And celebrate your milestones. no matter how small. Recognizing your progress is a great way to stay motivated. Conclusion. The final secret. Looking back on my journey, from that nervous beginner to the confident speaker I am today, I realized that learning English is not just about mastering a language. It's about persistence, resilience, and embracing new challenges. Each obstacle I faced and each mistake I made was an opportunity to learn and grow. To anyone embarking on a similar path, I encourage you to keep pushing forward, even when it feels difficult. Learning a new language is a journey filled with ups and downs, but each step forward brings you closer to your goals. And now, for the secret I promised at the beginning. The single most important secret to mastering English is this: you must find a way to enjoy the process. It's not about forcing yourself to study, it's about finding the fun in it. It's about the joy of understanding the lyrics to your favorite song for the first time. It's about the excitement of watching a movie without needing to read the subtitles. It's about the thrill of having a real conversation with someone from another country. When you start to enjoy the process, you will never want to stop. That is when you will become truly fluent. So, my challenge to you is this: find one thing about learning English that you can genuinely enjoy and do it this week. Maybe it's watching a funny television show, listening to a fascinating podcast, or playing a language game on your phone. Find your fun. Please like, share, and subscribe to the Wisdom English podcast channel to watch our next videos.